All right, the last thing we need to talk about this section is a formula for finding sample size for estimating a population mean. Just like in 7.2, we had two formulas for when the problem said find the sample size to estimate a population proportion. Here we're estimating a population mean instead of proportion. Our formula still begins n equals because n is the variable that stands for sample size, and n equals z sub alpha over 2. We're going to find z sub alpha over 2 just like we did in 7.2 using inverse norm 1 minus alpha divided by 2 for a confidence level that we're given. We're also going to be given the population standard deviation and a margin of error. Z sub alpha over 2 times sigma divided by E, and then that whole quantity squared will give you sample size. Two important things: don't round your Z sub alpha over 2. If you do, sometimes you will get the correct answer, sometimes you'll get the incorrect answer. If you always want to get the right answer, then don't round your Z sub alpha over 2. And then also, like in 7.2, you always round sample size up to the next largest integer. Even if this formula gave you, for example, 80.01, if you only interview 80 people, then you won't have the desired confidence level. You always have to round up. So even if you just had 80.01, you would still round that sample size up to 81. Let's look at an example. Assume we want to estimate the mean IQ score for the population of statistics students. The population of IQ scores for statistics students has a standard deviation of 15 points. That said standard deviation for the population, so that is sigma. How many students must be randomly selected? The fact that it says how many tells me that I'm looking for one of my sample size formulas. And the fact that it says estimate that the sample mean is within 3 IQ points of the population mean means I need this formula from section 7.3 instead of 7.2. I'm not trying to estimate a population proportion. I'm trying to estimate a population mean, and this is the formula for sample size for estimating a population mean. If I want to use a 95% confidence level, that means alpha is 0.05. And my margin of error is 3 IQ points. Now in 7.2, this may have said 3 percentage points. If it was 3 percentage points, then we let E be 0.03, but this didn't say anything about percentage points, so E is just 3 IQ points. Substituting those values into the formula, inverse norm 1 minus 0.05 divided by 2 gives me this value. But if I don't want to round it or write it down and type it back into my calculator, I'm just going to continue with the formula. I'm going to not only find that inverse norm 1 minus 0.05 divided by 2, but I'm going to multiply that by 15 and divide 3 by 3. Notice that that whole expression had to be in parentheses. I had to open parentheses before I even opened inverse norm because I need to square that entire quantity. I'm going to enter that entire expression inside one big set of parentheses, and after I close that parentheses, then I will square that answer and hit equals. All right, let me show you what that's going to look like on the calculator. Z sub alpha over 2 for a 95% confidence level is inverse norm 1 minus alpha over 2, 0.05 divided by 2, close parentheses, close parentheses, multiply that by the standard deviation, which was 15, and divide that by the margin of error, which was 3, and I get that value to be 9.799. Now, I did something accidentally here, but it's fine. I forgot to open the parentheses before I started with inverse norm, and so I didn't close them at the end. This value is not my answer, but this is what I need to square. I went ahead and hit my equals button. Now if I square that, I get the sample size is 96 point, round it to 04, 96.04. But remember, sample size has to be rounded to the next highest whole number, regardless of what is in the tens place. If I want to be 95% confident, then I need to round my sample size to 97. And with a simple random sample of 97 statistic students, I can be 95% confident that the sample mean is within 3 IQ points of the true population mean. I want to re-enter this one more time. Since I didn't have the parentheses in like I had on my paper, I want to do it that way this time. The previous expression that I entered, since I forgot to open the parentheses, I went ahead and calculated everything that was inside the brackets in that formula and then squared it. And honestly, that may be the easiest way to enter that formula into the calculator. But if you do remember to open parentheses before you pull up inverse norm, then you can continue on 1 minus 0.05 divided by 2, close the inverse norm parenthesis, then say times 15 divided by 3, and close this very first parenthesis that you opened. And then square, and then enter, and you get the same 96.03, which rounds up to 97 statistic students. All right, so you have two formulas from 7.2 for constructing a sample size for estimating a population proportion. You only have one formula in 7.3 for estimating sample size for a population mean. Now you should be ready to do the next homework, assignment 14, and it's almost time for test 3, so make sure you do that practice test 3 before next class. Thank you.